for meals for yourself lately?
God, it's been a mess lately. Popcorn.
Oh, it's my kind of mess.
Yeah, it's good.
Do you do yeast or anything with your popcorn?
Yeah, usually nutritional yeast.
Humble way.
The humble way. I've been doing, when I really doctored up, it's garlic, nutritional yeast, sesame seeds, salt. Sometimes tahini, sometimes not.
It's really enlivening it out to a savory.
Yeah, I go
experience.
hard savory for popcorn. I actually, when I really do it, I saute it with butter, and I even try to burn it a little bit, honestly.
Gotta get the crisp.
You too, I just need the carcinogenics. It's bad. I'm like, yes, burnt ends.
I burn all my food.
I know, it's so bad.
Intentionally, anyway.
I do. I'm like, yeah, fuck it. I love burnt food.
My favorite thing is to burn spices in the pan before you cook anything.
That's how you do masala,
flavor.
properly. Yes, and Spanish rice. That is the way.
Is the way. Popcorn is a meal. That's fucking incredible, actually.
Honestly, it's almost a whole meal. Fiber-wise, protein.
It sure.
Corn just has it all, Holds down most of my life.
It's one of those.
It is a grain.
It is a grain.
It is the grain of the Americas.
We've survived on this for quite some time.
Yeah, it's quite a bit longer than the colonial state.
See, throw a little bit of beans and squash in there with your corn.
Oh my
You're gonna be
god.
on the right track.
Pretty much, that's all it is. I use sweet potato for most things.
Oh man, I don't work with potato much in the kitchen, but it's not for a lack of love,
It's just really rich, and I love the richness of it. It can absorb a lot of smokiness, and so it takes a lot of the weight for me for when I do meat replacement.
Are you vegan?
Not intentionally, but also yes, intentionally. I'm trying to be vegan. I'm not very good at it.
I relate to that a lot. I'm kind of like the opposite of when people say, well, I'm vegan, but not for the ethical reasons. I'm like, I'm ethically vegan, but sometimes I'll indulge.
Yeah, I'm ethically vegan, but terrible with my discipline. No vegan wants me on their team. I'm an opportunistic carnivore. I'm more identify with scavengerism than anything. My sense of urgency is so pushed towards one collective, discussion surrounding environmentalism that I don't want to get bogged down in interpersonal focused means. And that's right now. It's not forever, but yeah, I don't know.
Yes.
I'm a terrible environmentalist when it comes to my personal practices. People will be like, "Cozy, you don't recycle, you don't do anything." I'm like, I know. It's bad. When I have the means, I promise I will get my headspace together enough to work on that. I canceled Amazon. It's been 6 months and I have not used Amazon, so I'm pretty proud of that.
Oh, right on. Yes. No, there's a validity in dismantling the personal responsibility idea behind large-scale systemic change anyway. When you're talking about environmentalism or Amazon or saving the world,
I'm talking about that
hardly do
bigger.
that with personal recycling.
Yeah, that's, at the end of the day, kind of my thing is we said we need to hold corporations personally responsible for their place in climate catastrophe. But we haven't discussed what that means, and there hasn't been space for it.
Yeah. Now, here's a really interesting lacuna I haven't heard anyone reach into. If corporations are legally people, And we legally have the death penalty on the books. Under what conditions is a corporation allowed to be killed?
Oh, I love that.
Read this, Batman.
That's so good. Oh my god.
I'm pretty sure I can name 3 or 4 corporations that probably don't have a track record.
Right. No,
with,
Exxon, let's
supporting.
go.
Exxon, let's go.
I'm coming
Wonder
for
Woman,
your throat,
let's go.
Exxon.
Going, British Petroleum, let's go.
British Petroleum, let's go.
I'm with them.
Oh my god, that reminds me of like,
Oh yeah. Unravel the thread, please.
just like the ways that interpersonal things get blown up, and like given a focus larger than what they deserve. Like, yeah, I'm not stoked with the rolling coal folks or the red gas people, but I don't think they're my enemy either when we're talking about climate change.
Right.
Like, those aren't the people that I think of when I think of an enemy.
I mean, anytime we talk about climate change or systematic change in a broader sense, well, if there's a broader sense than climate change, it's probably arguable. But I mean, I definitely feel that it's class warfare at the end of the day. Anyone who's working for a living and trying to support their income and their families.
Not
that's,
my enemy.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm like, sorry, you are not the one I'm thinking of.
Yeah, not the responsible party.
Yeah, exactly. And honestly, I'm mad on your behalf too.
Yeah,
Like,
right.
I'm really mad on your behalf. Your loves and your like genuine things that you care about are being exploited, and I see the way they're exploited.
And that love, that solidarity for people along the same lines is like a source of strength.
Yeah.
It emboldens us.
It does. And being able to acknowledge it and to say, like, we are the same in this, like, we agree.
It's a powerful thing.
Yeah.
It's funny how much like social discourse built around difference like has to willingly curtail the vast agreements that people share in order to hone in on the dire consequences of disagreement. It's a really fascinating in the most morbid or macabre sense, but like it's a really fascinating byproduct of like the 24-hour news cycle.
Right.
That
Oh
we're
my god.
so capable of dismissing the vast agreements that we have.
Yeah, well, and it's this distorting of what is important and what deserves our attention and our focus. And I always think about it as having my attention in sort of a field around me, right? And it extends, you know, to the peripheries of where I feel safe, essentially. And I think you get that with dogs, right? Like, if you've ever like lived with dogs or in the country, you have that understanding of to what extent of your property or where you are, you're feeling safe, and where your dog is an important part of that, like, equation. And so everything around me is my attention, and it's in this sphere, and the digital space is almost like a portal, or like a window into a different layering, like a different type of layering for attention. And in that layer, I can see or feel all my roommates, like everyone else who has an online presence, right?
Yeah.
And
the global village.
Yeah, the global village, and it's so cool, and like so many people are out there just like playing games and talking to each other and forming connections and having moments, and it's just awesome to hear like human minds buzzing at that level. Like it's just great, you know. It's alive. It's what I miss about living in the city.
Yeah, that open space and community, and just
Yeah.
like that electric life kind of giving off and horizontal wish-washing, you know?
Flow,
It's-
yeah.
Uncontainedness.
And we all are like actually out there, you know. It's not like the internet created something that didn't already exist. It just gave us a new way to peek in at it.
I feel that the content commodity stasis of the internet that we find in like our current late stage capitalism is such a contingent and temporary space, and I think it's going to be really, like, sometimes I get caught up in curiosity for how the future will look back upon our presence today, seeking to relate the vital human experience into these technologies that are portals to our larger realms, to our roommates, and the way that we are balancing like this political and community struggle, these identity struggles, to the degree that there are legitimate and constructed conflicts around identity and history, and how we emerge from that through our own lives and then broadcast those lives for one another in almost this performative element of trying to share that which we might agree and mutually recognize is like the real sauce of life.
Oh my god, and that's why TikTok blew up.
Yes.
TikTok was literally just people being like, oh my god, I love Windows. I'm gonna peep in yours, and you can look in mine in this exact way. Like, as we all realized, as long as I control where the camera is, I don't care about sharing. Yeah. And it was great. It was awesome to see everybody suddenly be like, yeah, I love this roommate sitch. Let me show you what I got. And then that, like, awful commodification, that, like, monetization, that, like, let me pitch it to you, let me sell it to you, let me add to you about this, like, thing that we all already have discussed and tiredness for and whatever, kind of took over the TikTok-edness of it all, and we were like, damn. But I mean, I don't know who else was like, damn, but I was like, that could have been great for us, you know, like, and I think it was great, but like.
I think that's such a spirit of exploration, and like I feel like those moments happen with every new technology.
Yes.
Is there's this moment of engagement in play that is so sincere and authentic.
Oh my god.
You know, it reminded me when I first got on TikTok. I was not an early adopter by any means.
Me neither.
But when I first got on there, I was like, this right here feels like what YouTube in 2011 felt like. You know.
Yeah.
There was like a similar electricity of just, what can we do with this available medium, and who is listening out there, and what does our collaboration mean for the world, and what do we build into?
Yeah.
And it's such a fun, exciting place to be in, of that open possibility and that constructiveness.
And that is the beauty of digital environments, because they can be constructed and destroyed without like a huge loss of time, space, resource, materials, all this stuff. So you can do a lot of generative experimental shit in there. And that thing that you're talking about, like, I remember being there when Vine was blowing up, when like all of these different video platforms were kind of being trialed and tested, and then watching them dice and chop the ones that were like being approved and given support, like YouTube, was just kind of horrific. Because it wasn't what the people loved, it was what was making money. And so that was like a wound to me, like looking at it from a health, holistic, public consciousness, social support kind of way. I'm like, that was a cognitive psyche wound for all of the people who experienced it, and now we have to navigate that shit, and it's exhausting.
Well, people thought it was an ecosystem that they're participating in, and they realized it was a petri dish that was serving a larger purpose of some man in a coat. You know?
What a betrayal. What a fucking betrayal. But the thing is, that petri dish that you participate, like what you built with that was what can be built with these spaces, like, and you can still do it. And I'm seeing that. Like, one of the things that have been inspiring me in my project has been watching Instagram users be creative users of that interface, because Instagram is designed, the only purpose of that app is to stay open. So every last decision rule embedded in Instagram's if-then logic is geared towards staying open. It's not geared towards any other aspect. So their decision trees are really fucking weird. If you were imagining it to be streamlined for creative use, it wouldn't look like that. But it looks like that because it's designed to be open, not designed to be creatively played with. Although it is one of the most coolest artistic play spaces in the world.
Really
so
I love the Instagram grid just from a visual design perspective, and how you can embed information. It's almost like combining the infinite scroll with hyperlink, like textuality. And being able to enter
doing like
into
an interesting
portions
fold of.
And then all together brought together through like quilting and this idea of generationality.
Yes.
It's really I've enjoyed.
God,
I've enjoyed the play.
the beauty of Instagram too is that like the segment of the population that currently, or that like kind of helped make it what it was, because all of these things are sort of responding to our use, right? Like that's how digital environments work. They start out simply responding to use, and it learns from you and you learn from it, and there's this like relationship going on whenever you start a new account or a new profile or a new platform. And that's the same in a bigger sense when a platform is brand new. It learns from the user base what the user base wants and what it needs and how it's functioning. And so there's an inherent relationship at that level that can be like modified, cultivated, and curated by and for the people.
Yes.
And it should be.
Yes.
And that's my that's my line. I'm like on the line advocating for that line.
Oh, totally. It's really interesting. I think one of those survival mechanisms of late capitalism is its ability to procure authentic spirit and bend it back to its own devices, but in the process, it inadvertently stumbles upon like an abstract codification of effective spirit in relationship to technique.
Yeah, that's
that
cool.
then can be harvested by the people who recognize themselves in it and can, repurpose it, reconstitute it in new spheres.
Yeah, steal it and reiterate
generate
it and use it. Yeah, oh my God.
It's interesting. It's almost like capitalism is like this hyper-pressurized mimetic rocket for the future that once it breaks out, it's like an egg that's going to give birth to something.
Oh my God, like a weird centrifuge.
It.
Yeah, totally. I can see that.
That's the optimistic lens.
That is nice. I love your optimism.
Well, you gotta have something.
It's beautiful.
On
I love it.
Because it's such an interesting space. There's always this tension between the specialist use, the artist on Instagram or the person who's even the influencer for however I don't know, corrupt is the word that comes to mind, but for however
morally bankrupt.
Yeah, exploitative.
Yeah,
that
willing
position
to
is.
shill.
Yeah.
Willingness to shill.
Like for however vacant
down you are to
sort of
whore for the baddies.
Yeah, self-minimizing, right?
Right,
it's subverting yourself to
totally
the algorithm.
Uh-huh.
And trying to connect to that way.
Yeah. And I've done that intentionally and for fun, and so I can speak on it a little bit, but yeah, doing it under any other circumstances, like, just, I can see why people are trapped in that mindset, like in those places and spaces.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's not in the least. No, it's a very dynamic space.
It is.
And there's a tension between the way that people who are like almost like structurally invested in the platform interact versus like the normie user or the person who's just along for like, well, it's a thing that's happening.
Structurally invested in the app. Yeah, and those, again, back to that, those are the people who helped build it. And I just want to reiterate that these things can be destroyed as quickly as they can be created, and if you would prefer to be in a different environment, it can be built for you. We could do that together. Like, please don't feel trapped with these options, because they were created with the idea of exploiting you. And they are working to do that at a phenomenally awful rate, and we watched the destruction of the environment in real time go from like a steady incline to an exponential increase because of the technological use and like Bitcoin and all of these other changing factors in the global market. That global market is killing us, and we need to talk about it. And so we need some literacy about that. And so one of the biggest things I just want people to take in is your favorite things about your favorite digital space can be creatively brought with you. Put it in your fucking bag and come with me. It can be done, and we can just do it. I can do it for you if you want. Like, I have the skill and I can teach you. Like, we can do this together. There are so many others too.
It's really an exciting place to be, especially within the imaginal realm of how to kick off into something more in designing these new spaces for people which are more geared towards well-being and community structuring.
Yeah. And you see that with like Mastodon, right? And with other community spaces that
What
are...
is Mastodon?
Oh, it's an experimental community like space meant to replace other alternatives, essentially. And part of the hope in their creation of it was really to get out of that polarized political environment. I'm pretty sure... I haven't looked them up in a while. Times are always changing online.
It sure pays well.
Yeah. But I'm pretty sure, there have been attempts, but it is all about timing. And it's all about the reality we construct socially with each other in the meat space or in the physical realm. Those things are impacting us in ways that our digital selves are so sensitive to, and most people are just not aware enough of that sensitivity and the way it changes. And that's a learning curve. In becoming more digitally competent is learning sensitivity levels and what they mean, and that it can be trained, it can be taught. This is just a new space. It's just a new environment, and there are people who've lived in it for a long time and who understand it and who can help shape it, and we just need to do that, and now is the time. Because those people got that training back when they fucked up, when they didn't realize the kind of power they were handing the people. By creating this. Yeah, and it was very expensive to create a global communication system.
Literally.
And it continues to be expensive. Even though our government has pocketed so much money for updating that infrastructure that came from the people, or somebody pocketed that money. Was it the government? Or was it a ISP? Gosh, man, ISP knowledge is really locked for me right now for some unknowable reason. You fucking killed me. Tell me about this.
The heart.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, first recognize the stone.
No.
Yeah, it's cow bone.
Okay.
And it's a heart painted on there. My sister gave this to me. She found the cow bone on my mom's property, and she carved it up into a bunch of pieces. She asked me, "What do you want me to paint on the bone?"
Your sister's cool.
She's dope.
She's very cool.
And I was like, "I want a heart on the bone," and she was like, "That makes sense."
That makes sense.
I love to rather than sending the heart emoji, I love to send the meat heart emoji. I feel like it conveys more accuracy.
Yeah. Oh my god,
So
your
this
online presence just keeps me alive some days. I'm like, thank God, Posey is posting. The world can keep turning.
Keep it embodied, you know what I'm saying?
You really are. You are keeping so many people embodied. I really think so.
That is beautiful to hear because it's always the screaming into the void, black hole emanating radiation.
All the time. It's
such
a. And that's why my whole thing about radical self-care is another part of my bottom line. Not to keep sounding like a broken record.
Yeah, no. Good ideas.
If you're going to be online, part of the learning curve for that shouting into the void experience of being both super transparently knowable and yet not necessarily being known, or being allowed to know that you're being known, which is another layer. That takes an entire new sense of self-resiliency, and that level of self-resiliency involves radical self-love. It involves understanding who you are and what you're doing on a level that is far beyond what most people are capable, time-wise, of doing. I can't reiterate enough that I was given a 4-year span to think really hard about all this.
Yeah.
I was given the space.
Yes.
And what I'm advocating for is for every last human on Earth right now to start having that space, and that means climate migration, reallocation of resources.
And now that's so difficult within our economic
our current
condition.
structure, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense.
Our form of metamorphosis puts us in that position.
Our health system is fucking compartmentalized. Oh my god, I know. My current trumpet leading this charge, is let's rally behind the sex workers, because they hit so many of the intersectionalities where injustice is like most evident. And so if we rally behind protecting sex workers as like a main thing, it covers internet sex workers and it covers in-person sex workers. So that covers the digital to physical spectrum, polarization spectrum, whatever.
Yeah, totally.
And it should cover a lot of different racial and gender intersectionalities and spectrums, and a lot of other like protected vulnerable people, or people who should be protected who aren't. And then like if we had quality sex work, like, which I think would happen if it was allowed to thrive in a protected space. If we had quality sex work, I think we would have quality lifestyles. I think
it's so much.
Humanity is just horny and hungry and annoyed knowing that there's food and sex in the next room.
Upstairs, and they're making noise, and we have to listen.
And we have to listen to them. Yeah, oh my god, we're all roommates, and we realize that 1% is like at the penthouse all the time, making a lot of fucking noise. I'm so tired of listening to their shit.
Hunger is one thing, but hunger while being taunted, that's a whole different
fucking
thing,
another thing. Fight me.
That's a really great point, because, the intersection of, like, repression and patriarchy and diversity is a very, like, the
stormy brew.
Yeah.
It's a stormy brew.
The predation of patriarchy at a systematic level takes as its kindling the bodies of the people who are most vulnerable and who are most willing to engage with the spaces that patriarchy itself fears most, which is sexuality, which is intimacy, it is non-rational connection, and it's the lifeblood of this world and of every world as far as I've ever seen, but nonetheless it's a challenge to accept, and it's a continuous, I think an anathema to like male dominator culture and its dogmas is the idea that ever-present flux is ever-present, and you have to be present to be with it. You cannot pre-code yourself to respond in advance in unseen degree to be able to live at life as an automaton. And no one would really want that. We found that over the last 500 years, we went through the ropes of thinking that, God's a watchmaker who set everything going and stepped away, and we watched the mind and culture that created.
Oh my god.
It's self-destructive.
It is.
And how could it not be? It robs us of our vitality, which is all we can really be.
Yeah, and I've been thinking a lot, about how empire continues to perpetuate because it is one of the few systems that intentionally thinks beyond a single human life and thinks generations ahead in constructing its modus, right? The way that it moves and what it does. And so in order to construct an alternative, we have to be thinking in a generational sort of sense, but we also need it to be like wildly not that. And so, how do
Which is where generational healing comes in. That's the first being able to respond to the damages that have already been done by planning that is antithetical to human well-being in the generational sense. They made plans that were detrimental to our quality of life in a generational sense, and then they're like, well, look at how well all these things are doing. And it's like, and at the expense of what?
Yeah, oh my god, one of the guys that like is keeping me going is that guy who does the different generations in the way that they work, and it's just like on Facebook. It's a Facebook reel. He's super chill. Yeah, he's just like the boomers and the silent generation and generation X, Y, Z, and it's just like how they're working if they're working from home. And I watch him every day. I'm like, tell me, because he somehow has some kind of like in, and I'm like, I want to know all the different generations and how their work from home styles change, because that shows me at a glance the stratification of our economic environment. And I'm like, cool, thank you for the intel. It's just this random Facebook reel guy, right?
Yeah, it's like morning coffee with your roommate.
Literally, and I'm just saying, like, we are all here, and everybody is so special and amazing and, like, capable and competent and just wonderful. We are, actually. And if we leaned on each other and, like, acknowledged it with each other, we would be able to do anything. Yeah. It's just some, like, where did I get him? I picked him up in one of my algorithms, and, like, to be fair, I am exceptional in the sense that I intentionally curate all of my digital stuff, and like to some extent, and I have a modus on there.
Right.
But
and an awareness of the mechanism.
And the mechanistic awareness is so important. Like, when you understand how something works, you can reverse engineer it and use it for yourself. Yeah,
And then
so
the feedback becomes alive.
Yeah, and then it's yours too, which is nice. But yeah, I don't know. I've moved through my life seeing people like be shocked or surprised or scared of technology, or feel like overwhelmed by the implications of it, or even just using it. And I've always been like kind of grieving at how easily empowered they are. Like, you know, I could sit with somebody for a week and I could get them feeling really in control of their technology and their tools, and they would go off and they would use them well, and they would take that learning and they, you know, teach them how to fish. Like, I could do that. And a lot of people could. And so the fact that we're sitting with this lack of empowerment over our tools is clearly intentional. And it's just tragic. I'm like, honestly, with a little bit of click curiousness, which is one of my favorite comments ever that I've ever heard in my life. I'm just going to get click curious.
CK or QUE?
Both. Please do both.
Yeah.
Yes, infiltrate subgroups.
Yes.
Become a spy.
That is my climate migration.
Oh, I love that. That's so cool.
Cultural climate migration.
Honestly, same. Like, that is how I've been able to consistently feel real and present in the world, is finding different perspectives and like coming to understand them and learning how we're all the same, and like having all of this movability. Like, I've been privileged in so many ways, and I can travel through so many different spaces without getting impeded, and that privilege I've tried to use to be like, what do we have in common? Like, what and how does this look on me? Also.
yeah, and chameleon. You fit yourself into the world however you make sense of it.
Well, and it's fashion. If it's always at a fashion level, then you don't have to take it that deeply. And if it's not that deep, then it doesn't have to like necessarily be in conflict or in deep contest with your personal values, or like being embedded in personal values in ways that might be dangerous to you later if that identity gets weaponized against you. You know, all this stuff. So like, decide when it's just fashion.
Right, yeah.
And that's the power that I think fashion gave us. This idea that we can dress up, that we can become completely new, that we can wear the vibe of whatever it is we want to embody the most. And so I'm really here for fashion.
That's a really interesting perspective. I really like that perspective.
Thank you.
That's cool.
Yeah, you can just dress up as an identity, and it doesn't have to be that deep. And that's the freedom that I've found in a lot of like non-binary friendly spaces, is this idea of like, whatever it is that you're bringing to the table outside of your gender is like being heard in a way that's different. And that's, I don't know. Never mind. I lost my thread. Sorry.
Okay, I have a question for you.
Okay.
What is the relationship between dressing up and playing within expression and the chambers of culture which keep them sustained and distilled or refined? Like, if you say that, you know, the punk scene or the hardcore scene is like living and thriving at punk and hardcore shows, and then there's someone who maybe doesn't go to the shows but who puts on the punk aesthetic and embodies it, and maybe can be present in the attitudes and the values of that group, but like, how does gatekeeping have a function? Because we all kind of intuitively think that gatekeeping is like not unacceptable, but like it's kind of like, it gives you an ick, you know, when someone's trying to like close people out of a community. Right. And yet there's also like a vitality and an inner realm to identities that cannot be accessed by all, it seems. Right. So where is like the line between the play and the belonging? Is it a claim to consistency in an identity, or? At
the end of the day, it's values. It's like, if you share values on a basic level, the play, as long as you can actually play, is just fun.
Mm.
But the challenge for play for an outgrouper who is purely joining for value purposes only has a higher like threshold for tolerability, I guess. Like you have to be able to play better.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if I like infiltrate a punk scene, then I have to be really fun because I'm not normally a punk scene interloper.
Right.
But if, as long as we shared values, I can like include myself as part of the group and be like, oh well, but we agree about like all these really important things, and so I can just go out and play for the night, and we can have fun. But I have to bring my A game for fun. I can't just like go and loaf in their space,
Yeah.
right? Like I have to be like ready to be a punk. Otherwise,
Yeah.
like, why am I at the punk show?
100.
So really that's kind of the breakdown, is that shared values, and my perspective in life has always been the like almost enforced belief that we already share values at fundamental levels.
100,
Like
yeah.
we just do. Like we all love dogs. Tell me you hate dogs.
They're right.
I'll fight you.
And as a wanderer, you're
Yeah.
able to be able to see those different facets of culture that allow you to be able to actually dynamically engage with the play in a concrete way.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and you have, that is part of the flow too. It's like being able to be present with people, because at the end of the day, that value, like what recognizing whether or not you share values is about whether or not you can recognize one another's energy in a way that nobody's like upset with.
Yeah.
Like, and so that's a really like delicate level of just being in space with people.
I have,
Oh my
I have a
God.
question.
Okay.
Can I paint one of these
Yeah.
and give it to you to line over?
Yeah, totally. Get wild. Have fun.
Oh, let's spice this up.
Do it.
Oh, there's a drawing here.
Yeah, and the towel idea, if you want to tie-dye it, is fine. But if you don't, that's okay too.
So in what method do you tie this?
So when I'm, I guess maybe I'm just a very over-enthusiastic painter, so I usually do like way too much water, and so I water, like I just rub the water off from the paint.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, I was
But
beautiful with that.
yeah, I was like, oh, we should mess up the white towel because all the white towels need to be.
Yes, ma'am. I've got a little bit of purple here, a little bit
Okay.
of lavender to give all.
Oh yeah, we love lavender because we love bees.
Because we love bees.
We love bees so fucking much.
You know, lavender was a metaphor in the 1800s for queerness.
No.
So if a man
So we
was a
love-
bit lavender,
Oh my god, I love that. In the 1800s, where?
in the U.S.,
Okay.
Abraham Lincoln was known for being a little lavender.
Oh, Abe, my man.
Mr. Guy.
Oh
with
my
the-
god,
the-
what an
the tall
inspiring
trim.
story. God.
I take such refuge in history. The story's there. You know, in being able to recognize shared values, history becomes a much more welcoming space.
Yeah.
If you can empathize, I mean that's a matter of privilege as well. but
True.
Depending on where you're sourcing your history.
Yeah. Well, and that's huge in the South, right?
Right. Yeah.
And I
Talk
mean,
about
these
a
things are
cultural
happening.
Kushner.
Yeah, oh my god. It's the timing of it all that kills me.
The timing of it all in action. It
Yeah.
reveals like where people's values really are. you
Or
know?
have been. Yeah.
Yes,
And
yeah.
I'm just like, wow, you've been kind of awful for a long time.
Yeah. It's like chickens coming home to roost.
God. I think that's part of it, you know, like the American public consciousness just has so much horror. And it's the backlash of the previous generation's actions.
Yeah.
And it's thinking at that level that's hard. It's like, I always try to scale up from the interpersonal, so I think about like the ways that I've screwed people over, I hurt people,
Yeah.
or like ways that I've just devastated others, and how I've managed to, you know, kind of move on with my life, even thinking of myself as sort of an awful person, or just not liking that part of myself, or what happened there. And every time that I've been able to kind of come to peace with stuff has been, you know, understanding it within the broader context of events, within broader context of humanity, personhood, like what it is to struggle and be mortal,
Yeah.
and really in recognizing myself and others. And so in a historic level, at the level of generational trauma, that recognition of yourself and others, or of your culture and others' culture, and like how they all interact and like relate in our histories together, and how that's going to impact us, and then we're moving forward. Like, that's a lot of work.
Yeah.
But if we had the space and the time, we could easily like do that work, and we could get that space and the time with some climate migration and redistribution of resources.
Absolutely.
I'm gonna keep saying that.
Yeah, tie it in. And well, it's work that's facilitated by connection as well.
It is.
And connection is like a fundamentally a love relationship, you know?
It is.
You can't connect to something without having an appreciation or an inward identification with it.
And that's really, that comes back to like the history of building these ideologies, because we also have history of these ideologies, even if they aren't codified or taught in schools, or even if they are. You know, that namaste, that the divine in me recognizes the divine in you, that constant reflective, reflexive recognition.
And that really feeds off of mutuality, you know? I mean, I think that the Sangha is the necessary ingredient for these, for there to be a relationship between the practice of these ideas and the rediscovery of them as ideas. You know, I think these really powerful principles that help, you know, not govern, but really inspire in almost a technical sense, like inspire in the sense that it gives shape to our inward life, that carves a path through the world that is conducive to fluid dynamic movement within principle and within, you know, right relationship.
Yeah.
It's I think these ideas become codified in action because that's where the strength of the ideas live, and it's only in their articulation, or their articulations are only found down the line when we become self-aware in the reflexivity of that mutual recognition without the cognitive understanding of where it comes from or why it works. And it's only a reflection upon our present action that can rediscover the voice of these things.
Yeah, that is 100% like built into my project, with the reflectiveness of it and the layers and the authenticity of the capture and my refusal to use any editing software whatsoever. That's 100%. Okay, cool. This warm shirt is way too warm.
Oh yeah.
I'm going to. But that is an intentional part of the process, is this authenticity. And the layering. The layering. Oh my god. And it's just like, it's a synthesis and a synergy, and it is all coming together. Like, I can feel all these different pieces of my life and myself that for that like 4 to 5 year span that I mentioned were strung out across like a variety of different scapes and realms, like cognitive, physical, all sorts of different pieces of my life, just in different places. And I can feel this project bringing it all together into one space, and that space is myself. So it's almost a very like intentional, just drawing inwards, but in a way that's transparent and rapid self-construction, just to demonstrate, just to model, just to prove that we can have quick social adaptation, and that it will free up space for us to do more important things that will help us save our species.
It's like integrated metamorphosis, you know?
Yeah.
Being able to take things of life and channel it inwards.
Yeah, and I'm inspired by living here. Like, thank you. Yeah,
just for the record.
I'm just trying to. I'm trying to channel what I love about this place, because I came here and I was like, you have artists and environmentalists making love and music. That's it. That's like all Humboldt is. And then they're smoking weed and they're growing it.
And it's all
and a lot of them
air.
are vets, and a lot of, like, And there is, you know, there's a huge native presence too that I don't want to ignore the influence of because it's gigantic and it's awesome.
You know, this area is the largest confluence of different native tribes living in the same area of the entire continental North America.
Oh my God, it's so cool. It's so
like,
cool.
The spirit is so alive in an intangible sense, you know, but it's carried in the trees and in the fungus, you know.
Well,
you
and
have to go
again,
walking.
like just in a very literal sense, in a timeline sense, colonialism has had a light tread here.
Yeah.
It's light.
That's interesting.
Yeah, no. Historically, I'm telling you, I'm a history buff. That's it. That's all I am.
But
like,
you feel it in the people who
are here.
The settlers, even.
Yeah.
They have a different.
They have a complete
presence.
because they are new to this land, right? And they're getting that first, like, hit, basically the heady hit of the. I'm not going to say the Negro magic, but I could say that. Because of the way colonialism spreads across the globe, but instead I'm gonna say the indigenous magic because it's a different type of magic. But the people who are here and they moved here versus the people who were already here, you're seeing that relationship spread a new type of interaction that isn't oppressor and oppressed. It's a different power dynamic and it's fucking beautiful. It's amazing.
Like the prevalence of mutual aid in this community is something that spurs
yeah,
me.
No, it's huge. And it is the obvious answer to all of the like burning questions that drew me here, right? Like these burning like social justice and environmental like urgent needed questions that I, considering myself a denizen of the world, was like, we need to solve these things.
Yeah.
And they drew me here, right? Like just me in my life trying to answer these questions, and this is where I end up. And so of course these are the people who populate this space. And I'm like, thanks for letting me live here, guys.
Yeah,
you know,
right,
like I'm
right.
really grateful to just be involved.
No, I feel great. I mean, I was born and raised here, and I still sometimes feel like I'm like not on the outside, but like on the periphery of a really inward flow that carries
There's something
a current
cool
of action.
going. Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's
and I love the way you said that too.
It's really grassroots anarchism in like the simplest terms.
Yes, the non-hierarchical distribution of like energy exchange at a level that has enough relaxed like sense of urgency for survivalism, so that level is relaxed enough that you can start talking about what energy exchange looks like and what trade really is, and like uncapitalize your thinking. And capitalized thinking is by default is going to rape energy because it classifies certain labor as invisible. So no matter what, it's going to exploit people, but certain people's energy and attention and time at rates and quantities that other people won't experience.
Yeah, and it's a fundamental deceit because it's deeming it as valuable or invaluable, meanwhile marginalizing them and removing them from visibility to where the awareness of it fades away.
Yeah.
It's a really, I mean, it's self-defeating in principle, but I mean, I guess that's empire. It's a con that tries to take as much as it can before it inevitably spurs out.
Yeah.
It's just like how hard is the collapse going to be, and where do you have to stand not to get crushed by a pillar?
Right. Like, oh my God. But there's like a full circle part of that where you have people kind of like waking up to knowledge and change and the different layers of colonialism and constructionism and the way all this has been going on. And that's a lot of the people who live here. Like this entire region are full of people that kind of just know it as a normal thing that they know. And that's powerful in itself, because I've lived most of my life where that information or intel or like awareness was subversive. It was knowledge we didn't discuss or talk about. If we did bring it up, we were very like, I don't know, who's listening, who's watching, what kind of political context do they have. And you still see that at different layers of society, but it's just like a lighter boot. out here.
Yeah. No, and that's bizarre because that's so true, but it's something I haven't personally challenged articulating because having grown up here,
Yeah,
it's completely normal. Like
yeah,
it's
so normal to you.
It's the natural understanding.
Yeah.
And like what's stranger is like because of it, how do you say? Because it's so like anything that's normalized is not explicitly foregrounded because it's taken to be granted, you know?
Right.
It's understood.
Oh, yeah.
So when you see media representations of the wider world and nobody's talking about it, it's like, well, yeah, who would talk about it? Because everyone knows.
Because everyone knows.
But to realize, like, the
Yeah.
wider world is in denial.
Yeah,
you know?
like, or suppressed, or just actively, like, in ways that you're feeling very lightly here for now, are being aggressively held back and physically restrained. You know, they are incapable. They're being choked or suspended in some way that they can't, you know, articulate or move.
Forcibly resisted.
Forcibly, yeah, because empire cannot succeed without exploiting the people. Like it's a multi-billion-dollar industry to keep us distracted from solidarity.
Yeah,
Like it's not like we are very literally the power.
Yes.
And it's very clear to anybody who watched the way that our, you know, online data got monetized, or like, oh yeah, we became the product, ha ha ha, we understand market economy.
Right,
it's like, do we?
it's vicious. No,
it's true.
And this like self-defeating, like pseudo nihilistic, apathetic attitude that a lot of like especially young people have, where it's like that ha ha ha, we can self-reflexively like joke about ourselves as being the victim of this exploitation, therefore somehow we are on some moral standing.
We became on top of it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like it really sets people up, I feel, for a really rude awakening to like
it does.
The reality of the systemic force of exploitation and of subversion.
Yeah.
Which is sad because it's something that I feel is so, I don't know, I want to say unanimously recognized that the youth have this perspective upon, and I mean, in my perspective, what it is it's an intimate recognition of the mechanisms of repression, and particularly what is lost in the repressive function, because like every person has like an inward. I don't know what to call it, like a principle of growth. Like what you were saying about having enough space and time to be able to fill out and like integrate these ideas into something that's coherent.
Oh
People do that organically.
Everybody is going to do that organically.
That's what we do.
Yeah, that's literally what humans do. We're just like, oh yeah, when I have time, I'll do this and that and this and that and this and that and this and that.
Yeah.
When I have time, I'm like, we want you to have the time.
We want to create the time and space. And the repression is the interjection in upon
your
people's
attention,
organic
time,
process.
and your space. 100%.
It starts in youth, and the earlier you can normalize and accustom people to like, 40-hour work week. Oh, well, you just got to do what you got to do, and it's survival mode. Get people down to these base not reflexive, but reactive. Which is a very key difference. It's the difference between mindfulness and very similar aesthetic forms.
Right. It's your peripheral versus central nervous system. That's the difference. It's reflectiveness, reflexiveness, or reflection. Yeah, reactionary.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Reflexive and reactive.
So reflective,
reactive.
Oh, so maybe it's somewhere in that mind-body space.
Yeah.
Oh, cool!
I'll read into that.
You're so fun to language with.
Oh man, and that's the pernicious bit underneath this all. Is language is this
language.
codifying mechanism.
Oh my god, it is. It creates the world. That's why programmers start with "Hello World."
Yeah.
Like it is. Like they know they're creating a whole new world.
Interesting. Okay, this is like a little bit esoteric, but I assume that I'm gonna ask you open the space if you're familiar. You know Gödel's completeness theorem?
No. Tell me.
It's this mathematical proof that was devised in the 1940s by mathematician Kurt Gödel. I think he was Austrian.
Okay.
And it deals with the inherent limits of mathematical and logical systems.
Okay.
Insofar as they're reliant upon axioms.
Okay.
And it effectively, like, I'm a mathematician, so I'm looking with a sideways glance at it. but it's a notion that you cannot guarantee the validity of an axiomatic system from within the rules defined
Yes.
by the axiomatic system.
Oh my god, yes!
But that within the axiomatic framework, everything that can be proven true is true.
Is then true, yes.
And that within every axiomatic framework, there are true things that cannot be proven from within the framework.
Oh my god.
It's like this brilliant codification of
the way...
the systematic structure, but also how things exceed and like fully. It's like it's like looking at the petal of a flower as like a logical system and saying, oh, there are definitely other petals to a flower. There's something larger happening here, and it's impossible to codify every axiomatic system. So it's like it just opens up this space for structured imagination in such a rich and vibrant way, and it's fascinating to me that like mathematics is something that has like mathematics and science can be demonized sometimes as like overly rigorous or logical and prescribed.
I fight against that,
But it's frustrating because they're like the languages of liberation when they're applied in a way that is privy to their power and to the essence of their originative determination. Like the reason that mathematics and science came about in the first place was so that clear thought and shared consciousness could be defined in a way that allows for the sanctification of values that allows upon that to be built a shared world. And it's been a very gate-kept resource of intellectual life, like what you're saying about information technology. If people were more understanding of the mechanisms, they could overcome the fear and the doubt they have about technophobia and be able to engage with that space in a way that's constructive. It's a very similar thing I find in mathematics and science, where if you can see the historical force in political spheres, I mean, both positive and negative, as well as in like the larger, more generalized intellectual sphere, you get something that is so richly determinative. It's something that really has like a causal force that I don't think many things do have, and it's one of the reasons that it's been science and math are at the core of the weaponization of capitalist ideology. But you'll notice that you'll never find an entrepreneur who is interested in pure mathematics or in the history of science. It's they're very disjunctive spheres. Not to prescribe difference, but they're not
especially
archetypal
in this system.
shared qualities.
Well, and I think what you said about I want to go back to that idea that a framework or a certain system can then help understand truths from within that system. Right, and like every truth that is understood and found to be true within that framework is still true in a broader sense, but it can't prove truths that are outside. Am I redescribing this properly?
Yeah.
Okay,
so
because that style of thinking is really very much like the social sciences of like, let's create a framework that works with the data that we found. Because we're trial and erroring. Like early social science did a lot of R&D on how to do social science ethically, and they're still working on it.
Right.
And there's wounds that I would call generational wounds in that field of research that are going to need to be addressed. So as a science, there's still like this babiness to it that is just not as developed as it could be, and that's been this focus on STEM and this hard science world and so when you told me that, it just like felt so validating for me, thinking about like different frameworks and lenses in sociology. You have like symbolic interactionism and all sorts of things that are like just trying to describe the system that they're seeing, but they're doing it through the use of like intentional codified lenses. They're saying like, let's say that these are the rules, throw it at the board and see if they fit like the data and if it applies. And so it was a very reversed way to engineer framework thinking. But it was really cool to see.
And it is totally necessary, especially in a sphere as complex as human interaction. I mean, who's to say that we'll ever have a comprehensive model of human interaction? It's like it's so arrogant to think that we could.
I know, to imagine that we could have a model for all of human interaction, and that is the wisdom that's embedded in that scientific like area of inquiry, is this understanding of like human variance is going to continue to surprise us, and we should incorporate that surprise in along with our awe and wonder at the universe as scientists and build something that allows for variance but still gives us something useful. And so that's how I am always assessing social scientific avenues. I'm like, in what way does this serve the people that it's, studying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's really key. How does this serve the people that study? Especially, I think that you can get into a very masturbatory headspace about theory of
yeah, oh my God,
trying to get something that's right or can beat out other competitive
theories
ideologies
and ideas. Yeah.
But all
how
ideas
long
are
do you
pragmatic.
stay up there? Yeah.
It's like how do they reflect back into the world, and
what are we gonna do with that? Yeah. At the end of the day, I just imagine that I'm on this marooned on a beach with the rest of humanity, and we're all trying to figure out what we're doing.
Right. In philosophy, they teach us to ask the key question of all is, so what?
So what?
Yeah.
So
what do you do with that?
Yeah. What are we getting out of that? Yeah. Exactly.
How do we take these ideas and turn them into something
else? Yeah.
It's funny when you look at philosophy major program graduates. One of the largest jobs or positions that are found by graduates within 5 years after graduation is grant writing.
I'm not surprised.
And nonprofits.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting that confused me when I was a first year undergraduate, but as I get older and as I kind of come to understand the impulse behind the desire to know and understand the world more, it's really sensible to be able to keep things in perspective and proportion, and then to be able to act from a place within a concrete standing of circumstances that aligns with idea,
right?
But serves the concrete. It's interesting.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I was in my journeys, I've been pointed towards grant writing over and over and over. And so that speaks to me because I identify with philosophers very heavily.
Yeah, because you are one.
I'm I would like to be a philosopher. Please, can I be in your group? Thank you.
No admission necessary, frankly, but
right.
Sure.
How gatekeepy are we feeling? Oh my gosh, but yeah, I've been steered towards grant writing or drawn towards it or returned to that in nonprofits over and over and over, and I've been trying to think because every time it happens, it feels like that pull is magnetic. I can see where my skill sets and my knowledge and who I am would really fit well in that box or that role, and I feel the pull. And every time I feel the pull, but I don't actually want to do the thing, I'm like, why do I feel the pull? So why are we feeling it if that's not, it wouldn't cross my mind otherwise to care about either of those things. They both sound terribly dull. They sound really fucking awful, to be honest. It sounds like reinserting all of my energy into the system that I hate.
Yes.
And so I'm just like, why would I want to do that? And I have this just disgust look, but at the same time, it's calling to my really my core self. So I'm just why? What parts of me are being kind of inverted, turned around, exploited, and repurposed towards systemic violence, essentially?
Yeah.
Because it's just redistributing people's attention and time in ways that will help the empire outpace their mortal lives. That's it. Yeah. All they do is they run you in a fucking rat race until you die. I'm sorry. They don't care about you. They care about that.
They care about the system that provides
and
for their own perpetuation.
And originally, right, that systemic buy-in started with genuineness, right, with this idea. And I'm not saying that there was an authenticity to it at some point, because maybe there never was, but at some point the people bought into the system with authenticity. The people said, yes, I will take that social contract, I'll take that trade, I'll take that systemic injustice for the sense of my own safety, which is another generational wound that we all have to work together with, but, and I don't mean to run right over and beyond that. And maybe I just can't.
You just need space.
Yeah. We all need more space. That's my end argument is like, just give the people more space. We can do it by ourselves.
Integrate.
Yeah, oh my god. I can't even remember what I was saying. We get off on so like cerebral journeys. I just like
sometimes the pathways we take are tenuous, you know?
and then they just disappear into sunlight. Yeah.
Broken branches regrow into detritus, you know.
Totally.
Feed
Yeah.
the next.
But yeah, I don't know. The world is indeed the way it is.
I really sympathize with what you're saying. Sympathize doesn't have the timbre. Yeah, but I really empathize with what you're saying about the tension between participating in the system through grant writing as like something that could have like
Thank you
benefits,
for bringing me back.
but
yeah,
but still is like submitting to the system as it exists.
Yeah.
Versus the idea of like trying to tread something new and
Yeah.
restructure the foundations.
Yeah.
I think the difficult aspect. One of the difficult aspects is like it plays at every level at once, and these ideas perpetuate themselves, the personal and the community and the social and the ideological, the
all the different realms
superstructure
and spheres. Yeah.
simultaneously.
Yeah. Totally.
And it's like a war on all fronts.
Yep. And
See
you're
as a metaphor, but
no,
but-
it's so true.
and even to pull it background to like this community and this place, it's like it's really interesting that you have this confluence of like mindfulness, spirituality, of like diet, of like physicality and yogic mindfulness, and then also like mind alteration and being able to experience within your own subjectivity the transformations in like modality of conscious experience. And it's like a very, like safe space to modulate yourself and to explore openness in a way that's that you don't have to worry about you're going to be exploited for. Because if you're radically open in a system that's going to exploit you, you're going to get thrown around, and no matter how flexible and reflexive you are, like the best thing you'll be able to do is to get out of it.
Yeah.
And if enough radicals get out, like where do you have to end up cooling?
Where do
right?
you go? Yeah. No, and that's
the
a huge
primordials too.
I like that, and I also like this concept of a secret commonwealth. It's like this. This idea of a collective consciousness or a collective generational knowledge, like our fear of snakes or things that are just kind of embedded and encoded at the cellular level. On that, oh my god. I forgot where I was going again. I'm sorry.
No, you got it. It'll
Wait, what did you just say?
This place is a very open space. Got it?
Yeah. Wait.
It's like a lot of free radicals, open people in an exploitative system are going to just get thrown around and repurposed.
Oh, the secret commonwealth. Okay, so
so
the secret commonwealth is just this idea that in assuming that overall people are going to be good to each other and you're going to be good and you will get good by being good to one another, and just like this paying into the secret commonwealth of all beings and the secret like goodness of all things, it will just like carry you through life. And like we can't end mortality, but we can carry ourselves through life in a more beautiful way. Like, and it really just depends on if you're paying into and being a part of that secret commonwealth, or if you're actively opposed to it for some reason, and usually that's like social or interpersonal things that go down that like keep you from the secret commonwealth for a while and you flow back into it after a time. It's just being human.
That's a rich idea.
It's always there. Oh my god, Philip Pullman, my hero. Yeah, he quit his doctoral degree to write children's books because he was like, you know what, fuck it, I have a quicker way to tell you the story.
Yeah.
He's so
That's
good.
So good.
I love him.
Intervening in the minds of our children. That's a generation.
Yeah. No, he was like, oh my god, and Orwell, all of these people, and Pullman is much more recent than Orwell, but all of these people who have been writing books, long format arguments for social construction, right? So these are like the big boys. So all these people who've just been like angrily or passionately dedicating themselves to reimagining the things that give them the most grief
Yeah.
They have written some cool shit, and I've read a lot of it, and I'm just like, ooh.
Yeah,
We gotta,
put that at work.
Yeah, like, let's put it to work. And I see it at work here, and so that's kind of where I was going back to, is like, a lot of the people who live here actively and in a literal, almost definitely embodied, but very intentional way, pay into that secret commonwealth with the knowledge and the understanding that it's more real than paper money. And that's what's powerful. And you see that everywhere. You see that in so many other places. You see it in subcultures. You see it all across all sorts of places, across the strata of humanity. You see people just leaning into that secret commonwealth. And so it's almost that illusion of being free or not being free that is more of the problem. This like psychological entrapment that is the danger. Because we are in it already. We pay into that secret commonwealth of caring for each other all the time. We do it all the time in our daily lives. And when confronted with like genuine scenarios, we're all those people being like complaining at the horror movies that we would have done it differently. Like we are those people. It's okay. We can lean into each other, and it is more real than paper money, and it's already there. It's just that illusion. And that is really what Eastern philosophy taught me, was how to imagine that an entire experience of perceiving could be an illusion. I was like, that's way too big. I don't know if I can go that far.
And it's the pure liberation. Right?
Yeah. I'm like, I'm not ready. I don't want to get out. Oh. Send me back into the wheel.
right. Take the red pill, the blue pill.
Yeah, oh my God. And that's the thing, is like the literacy in people is huge, and that's ultimately like that's where my faith is based in, is watching Redditors jump on mental health lingo and appropriate it and use it to help themselves construct more resiliency and one another construct better ways of communicating about mental health on a way that like radically changed people's interpersonal relationships.
Oh, interesting. I'm not sure I've seen this. What is your perception?
I mean, just vocabulary entering the public knowledge, the general public knowledge, having vocabulary for psychological well-being, talking about emotional or mental experiences and health in a way that is codified and universal, like verbiage and tools. That's only been in the past 10 years. Have you seen people really starting to pick up and have those tools? And I watched it happen on Reddit. I assume that's where a lot of it was generated.
Yeah.
And people got that space, right? But it didn't have to be Reddit. It was just about people getting together and feeling like they could really talk about some stuff.
Right, and the next wave will happen wherever it happens.
Yeah, exactly. And I would argue that part of the key reason people felt so safe to have those discussions is the original anonymity of Reddit provided. That anonymity factor allows for the most generative space for human social environments. So
yeah, that's a really articulate point. Like really apt. And it's interesting too, because it's like anonymity is one of those things that's fading fast from the internet.
Yeah, no, it's a genuine endangered resource there. Yeah, and it's intentional, because the history of the internet is such that.
Data brokering, elites can
I'm like, how do I explain this to anybody who wasn't there? God.
The challenge of embodied experience.
Oh, that is one of the reasons it's so hard for people to wake up to themselves, is because embodied experience as like a knowledge storehouse has been in the possession of indigenous identities. Like, they never left what embodied experience fucking looks like. Yeah. A bunch of anybody who buys into colonial systems to some extent has to do lack of embodiment, disembodiment, right? Because you have to dehumanize yourself and one another to participate in the system at all, because humans are not stupid. We understand and can measure energy and labor and what that looks like. And so if you if you design and participate in a system that says certain labors just don't exist, that some of them are undervalued from other values, like this entire distortion of energy data, it's going to cause illness. You take a human that's really good at judging energy labor, like because they have to be, right? You have to be good at judging your calories on like a very basic level where you just like know that you're going to need to eat, you're going to need to sleep. Like it can't be something that you do manually. That would be weird. Right. So like at some point you learn to judge like energy expenditure, and it can be applied to everything else. We apply it to wattage, we apply it to light waves, we can apply it to anything. And then you go, oh, but social energy is different. Right. That's not true. It's just not. And humans can feel social energy because we use it to do exchanges and to participate in social reality. And so when we all collectively agree to lie to each other about labor distribution, you're going to have illness. Thanks for letting me get on that little podium.
No, please. It's a learning experience every time. It's like I return again to the notion of like integration, and people with like a really pristine sense of their metabolic, like.
Those people are wild to me. Oh my god.
Yeah.
I try, I watch my poop, but like.
Right.
But there are people who are much further along that path than me.
Yeah, right. Yeah, absolutely. There are lived experiences that necessitate it and put it at the forefront.
Sure.
But it's always the integration of your awareness of like these key elements of yourself with other things, like all people given space and time, which everyone has, even if they're impeded upon for oppression.
Right.
Like we have space and time, even if we don't choose what happens to it, even if we don't choose how we grow.
It exists. Yeah.
Yeah. We all, like the notion of in your own free space and time, you're allowed to integrate the contents of what's meaningful to you into a product that is like mindful and intentionally designs the future for yourself and others.
Yeah.
Like.
Which is really my pitch.
Yeah.
Totally.
The core argument.
Yeah, the core argument.
Like even if you're in a repressed space, even if you're like subverted to a cultural dogma that has a prescribed notion of who you are and what you're going to be doing, you still maintain that like essential characteristic of being, which is an integrative function. It just becomes an integration of repression, right? And so I feel like people who have that really like intuitive understanding of their metabolic limits, or people who have I've met people who really understand their social battery.
Oh yeah.
And the varieties of social energy and how to shift between them, how to like play a field of awareness, and give shape.
I love those people.
They're so fun to be around.
Yeah, they
because
are.
It's their specialty,
Yes,
they're
they're like, I love doing this. Yeah.
But like that's like their integrative function. And what's really like tragic is so many people become integral to the systems of repression that they feel the pain of, but cannot name or identify, or have the name stripped from their awareness of through these either, like we were saying, like denial or suppressive functions. They can recognize a dynamic in themselves, and they can feel the pain of like a hauntological absence of what they feel they could have been or they should be.
Oh my gosh, that
and
real
yet they can't.
ought and actual self.
Yeah. And yet they're glued in some way that they don't have control or awareness to manipulate the mechanisms of to their behavioral inertia.
Yeah.
That's one of the importance. Like it's a war on every front in order to change the world, but it's like any single front can change a person's life.
Oh yeah.
And that's the best way to change the world, is to put a seed in a life
every
that
front.
continues, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But yeah, it's just, I don't know. It's funny because a lot of the time, like me myself, I have gone through like really nihilistic, depressive periods where it's like hard to motivate and hard to see the light of what did you call it? The secret commonwealth.
The
hidden
secret commonwealth. Yeah.
Like to remind myself of the reality of that, or to motivate, or to like self-isolate, where it's like you know what is good, but it's like to the cognitive hang up of putting yourself in a position where you can give yourself to that is fractionated and splintered off into these other justifications, which are ultimately justifications for self-repression and self-policing.
Yeah, totally.
And I don't know if I have stuck to a framework that can return to the source of that idea, but it's
You're so good at articulating real-time brain mechanism. I literally thieved that from you and use it all the time to do my work. I was like, oh, wow, they're so good at that.
I'm glad. That is to the utmost of my desire, my integrative function. just this experiential, conscious experience.
Well, and you're talking about integrative functions, and to me that has been a huge part of what I'm thinking, because like I love making people feel better, and I'm really good at it. Like, really good at it. I have thought a lot about how to do that in my life for my own reasons, and it's fun. Yeah. And it brings me joy. And I'm like, I could bring you joy too, like, for free. And it would ultimately monetize my YouTube platform, which would be great. But, like...
Side benefits,
Side benefits, but that's not the point. Because if I'm not bringing joy, then, there's no point. Like, that, to me, that is a part of my integrative function. Like, a part of being who I am is a part of, like, just noticing the joy that's already there. And that is something I've intentionally built, like, muscle for, outside and beyond what my, like, personal life challenges ever could have done. I, like, went out of my way to be challenged in order to build muscle for this specific thing. So, like, I can't say that it's not an integrative function, right? Like, it's not something I don't want to do. I went out of my way to build it. And, I don't know, I think it's really cool.
Okay, so wait, I have an inquiry.
You have some questions.
Are you drawing a distinction between the integrative function and the conscious constructs that are in service of an intention?
No, I wasn't, but that's cool.
No, well, I was going to disagree if you were.
No, I love it when you talk, because you illuminate entire, like, structure that exists already. Like, from a philosophical standpoint, right, and trying to learn philosophy, which is a wonderful, wonderful, like, framework for seeing and interpreting the world, right? Trying to learn it from what is essentially a long line of old white men, and being in my positionality as a young woman for the most part of that, although that really had to change. But I mostly just had to find a way to love old white men.
Easier said than done, yeah.
It was actually pretty easy.
Yeah. I'm glad, because, it's...
I know, it's the one that people think of, like, any progressive, forward-thinking person who's, like, thinking of this realm of ideological warfare. Loving old white men feels like trying to love your neighbor. Oh, sorry, your opposition, or the bad guys. Right, but I just took a total faith paladin route. I was like, all right.
Yeah. Totally, it is.
And really it comes down to dehumanization and othering, because that will never change. That social mechanism of othering somebody else and dehumanizing them to the point where it can be acceptable for them to die, possibly in a corner where nobody has to see. Right? That particular mechanism can be applied to anybody. It doesn't matter who. Right now it matters who, because there are people who are dying and actively suffering from that mechanism, right? And so that's why it matters, because those people currently, and those identities currently, are vulnerable. But if empire as a concept doesn't stop or is broken down, those identities will simply change in order to perpetuate it. It won't stop for anybody, which is why everybody needs to get involved in finishing it. And so for me, there was no way if I was going to try to talk to everyone, I couldn't be like, except for you, old white men, fuck you guys specifically, right? Like, that just wasn't going to work out. But that's the challenge of transcending generational trauma, is how do you get beyond something that feels like such an open wound for a longer span than your own life? And the answer is always you have to believe in something more than your own life. Like, you have to believe in something bigger than you, something that goes beyond one mortal life. And that, for me, is an end of empire.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I want to see.
I love that. That's such a good cause. I mean, like,
thanks for listening to me go off. I feel like I'm supposed to be interviewing you.
Oh, hardly. I would be horribly comfortable if it were. No, that's brilliant. Like, yeah, like in the same way that alienation.
It's driving me crazy.
I don't know.
I'm like, who leaves their dog alone?
They're surely having the experience.
Surely, they better be.
It's been quite a minute now.
It has. I'm always worried when I hear dogs for too long.
Yeah.
Just because, they're lonely.
Is that a motel over there?
It was. It's closed now. So, I don't know. I'm guessing a car, maybe.
Yeah.
Just a dog in a car.
Yeah.
At least we know that. Sorry, but where were you going?
In the same way that alienation or othering and dehumanization are fundamental dynamics of human interaction, I feel empire is as well.
Yeah.
Which is deeply unfortunate. But it doesn't mean that it can't be fought against. And
I don't know if that's true. And I think that is a piece of assumptive knowledge that is like hampering our progress. I think it was an inherent part of our development to the current state of affairs.
Yeah.
Like, we needed empire. We needed something. It could have looked different. It could have looked gentler. It could have looked a lot of different ways. But the way it did look was a sort of violent, dominance-seeking competition, trying to find the best tools, the most sophisticated tools, in order to continue to survive in a way that felt protected enough to get to thriving, right? We didn't specially want just food and hanging out. Somebody wanted to do other things. And so there is this so I'm saying that empire has served us in the sense of technology and expansion in many, many ways, and global expansion, and getting us to a point where we understand how to use that learning feature, essentially, of technology, and how to explore and do R&D and that kind of thing. And we've codified certain practices for scientific inquiry and really laid some good groundwork. And we can take all that groundwork and we can just repurpose it. And empire doesn't have to be an inherent function of the human race. And I think any time you find yourself being that's just human nature, really question that.
No, I agree.
Okay.
No, see, because I don't think empire is an inevitability, but I think that it's an emergent property of fundamental human characteristics, which is not to say that it's inevitably going to occur, but that it will be something that has to be systematically disintegrated. You know what I mean? So empire is related to cliques,
right,
in group dynamics,
yeah,
but also domination and sublimation and ideology, because empires cannot function without being able to subvert a group of people into acquiescence to, at the least, if not internal adherence to and self-policing of an ideological system.
Yeah.
And within that, cliques is a social function of people wanting to be in together on the same page.
I see what you're saying. Okay.
So, but just almost in the same way that in nature you can find a poisonous plant growing nearby a plant that produces its remedy. It's we have to generate the enzymatic disintegrators of these impulses towards imperial attitude, you know, which I think is the systematic response to a systematic violence that we can recognize empire as being so destructive in its advocacy of. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does, because I mean, what I think of immediately is like aversive racism, or like how you have to be actively anti-racist in order to deconstruct or dismantle the racist aspects of the system.
Yeah. Because
it's that embodiment and like intentionality of like pushing forth some new way of being in the world that has to be done in order to like change what a default setting is. And so if there's systemic racism, that means that it's just going to be the default for social interaction. It's going to be the default for everything. Like when you see black people, all of the stereotypes that come up first are going to be negative, or they're going to be positive because you're actively trying to find positive black people, or you're seeing them in your life, or you're seeing representation that is positive in your life. Otherwise, the default is going to be negative, and that's just how that is.
But isn't positive stereotyping as destructive as negative stereotyping, as far as
not
prejudgment goes?
It's not like stereotyping as in like come up with. I mean, yes and no. Like, I actually don't remember I'm coming up with a conflict of constructs. Because stereotyping means something very specific in social psychology, and it's different in the colloquial use, and I'm struggling because I'm like in a limbo between the frameworks mentally, so I'm like, I can't really talk, but it's more about prototypes, but like I also can't talk about that, so...
Our archetypal configurations or something?
Yeah, basically like when you're positive, it's not positively stereotyping when it's sort of a relational, positive, like... model or demonstration. So say that like you watch a lot of content that shows blackness in a joyous or positive light, right? And it is celebrating black beauty, and it's made by black people who are intentionally celebrating that like particular aspect of themselves, their culture, their history, and their experience and embodied life, right? And so you watch a lot of that. And so when you see black people, you're like, aha, gorgeous. You know, like I know the story. You're beautiful. And that's it. Like it's not this stereotyping of like mentally coming up with all the reasons why black is actually good. And like you're just like creating a list for yourself and like reading it every day and then hoping that it comes up the right way when you see one out in the wild. You know, it's just like, it's more just like having empathy and understanding people's lore. And then moving through the world with that understanding in place, and like, and that's obviously again takes time and knowledge, sometimes specific knowledge too. But that is just like the increasing literacy of knowing each other is a default state for a digital environment where we're all roommates. And so like that systemic racism or that systemic sexism, that systemic embedded othering is built into the tools that we're using, the algorithms we're using, because it's built into the wider system already. So it's just going to be reflected there in a digital environment. And so you see that coming up everywhere, right? Like the social and the digital span. I'm sorry, I'm making you blink a lot.
No, that's my processing phase.
I know, that's why I'm like, I'm really worried. I'm like, you're blinking a lot.
No, this is fine. That's fine. People have said that to me before.
Oh, good.
No.
I love it. I mean, I love it because I love making you think. You have just such a brilliant mind.
Thank you. I'm flattered. I was all hell coming from who?
Shut up.
Same. So the word that comes to mind for that is like, I mean, humanization.
Right. Yes.
Like
so
overcoming dehumanizing categories that have been systematically developed through a radical humanization of your own perspective. Which is interesting too, because in talking about otherness and dehumanization, one thing that popped up that kind of got swept away in the current conversation is like, well, what does it mean to be human?
Right.
And that's something that we determine.
Yeah.
And that has been determined and is ideologically entangled.
Right.
So how do we give rise to something
Okay.
an image of being
Yeah.
that is
Yeah.
shared within the diversity.
Right. How
That-
do we
that
have
does
a
not-
unified social identity for humanity? That seems like a challenge.
Stuck on a spaceship together, alone.
Alone together.
Checking it out.
Alone together. Oh no.
Together.
I mean, my biggest answer to that goes back to that secret commonwealth. Is that, and let me say that, like, we get to decide what that identity looks like, because I'm arguing for intentionally constructed human identity. But the pitch I'm making is based on the trait of altruism and how it's been trending upwards in our evolutionary path. And more altruism as a concept, as we've been testing for it and looking for it and, like, defining it with so much thoughtful intentionality to what it is as a construct. We're seeing in the evolutionary science that humanity is trending towards being kind to one another because it's paying off. So, like, in a living environment, bodily way, just being kinder to each other is paying off for us. And so all I'm arguing is we just need to pause and give ourselves space to be a little kinder to ourselves and each other. And if we do that, we'll be okay.
Yeah.
And it's hard to argue for a whole species to just take a breath.
Especially when the air is so hot out.
I know, oh my god, it's so hot everywhere but here.
Everywhere here, yeah.
Yeah.
Safe from under the mist.
Ooh.
I can see some
The
sun
fog.
hitting the trees out there.
I know.
Sunset.
It's,
This is nice.
oh, it's good. I know, the light is starting to glow more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The atmospherism.
Yeah, it is. But
Commonwealth. Are you? This is. I can't tell if this is a non sequitur or not. So let's
let's
go.
just go.
Are you familiar with neoteny?
No.
Neoteny is a biological principle from evolutionary biology,
Okay.
which is the trend over the course of the evolutionary history of a species
Mhm.
for the adult of a species to resemble the infant of its predecessors.
Hmm.
So over millions of years of evolution,
Oh yeah,
they
yeah.
become more and more infantile in
Yeah.
their mature development.
Right.
That is one of the core characteristics of human evolutionary development.
Huh.
We continuously resemble our infantile selves more and more and more. But we're also one of the species with the longest biological history of maternal care
Yeah.
of our young,
Oh.
and one of the most tightly knit social organisms.
True.
So it's like
Oh my
we're
God.
becoming almost infantilized, which that has a negative connotation,
It
so I don't
does.
mean it in that sense.
Yeah.
But we're becoming neotenic within the
Neotenic.
context of a social framework that is willing to care for each other.
Uh-huh.
And I think this
Oh, that's
relates.
so cool.
And does that get at like a sense of intuition about innocence and exploitation, like the sense of like you look at nature,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a lot of living organisms that find a vast panoply of ways to take advantage of each other in
Mhm.
ways that support their own life.
Mm-hmm.
So, plenty of people throughout history, plenty of cultures have looked at nature and been like, oh, it's a hostile monster, and we have to
Mhm.
fight against it, right?
Mhm.
Overcome it.
Right.
And yet, we have this internal sense that the secret commonwealth
Mhm.
is like the transcendent truth. It is like what holds things together.
Right.
That like if empire is like a social organization that is at base exploitative in order to reinforce its own development,
Right.
then that becomes almost like archetypal of exploitation in nature
Mm.
as the confluence of living organisms that seek to reinforce itself at the detriment of its environment.
Mhm.
And if we agree that empire is fundamentally unstable, that it is
Mhm.
always, building on quicksand,
Right. And it is. The quicksand of bodies and lives.
then what can it collapse into?
Right.
Except for the Commonwealth, the
Right.
secret
It just
Commonwealth.
has to.
It,
yeah.
it inevitably reverts to the loving mutual
Embrace of the
interdependence.
mother.
Embrace of the mother.
To the embrace
Mama
of Gaia.
Earth,
Mama
Mama
Earth.
Universe.
There we go. Yeah.
But
That's
yeah,
beautiful.
But there's a structural
Yeah.
truth in that. Is
no,
there
there
not?
is.
Like
yeah.
it's I don't know. It's like growing up, I always
it's
had a
trying
really
to fill a bucket with a hole in it. It's
Yeah.
it's the same. You
Yeah.
can twist the metaphor a little bit, but trying to build on crumbling sand was. Go on. Sorry.
Yeah. No, I don't. Where's that going?
You were telling me more about this inherent instability in empire structure and how the like natural conclusion of that instability is to just sort of collapse into mutual care and aid and like interconnectivity and awareness and like consciousness towards interdependence.
Right. Well, so if that's like almost like an ecological truth,
Right.
like
Just the inevitable human.
not even human. I mean, like pre-human. I mean, like
Yeah,
in the animal
right, just
kingdom.
any,
You know,
yeah.
if you have a population of predators, you know, tigers in the wild,
Right.
pre-evolutionary history,
Right.
who are empathetic to the prey animals and choose not to eat more than they need to survive, like you're going to create an environment that has a stronger dynamic of
Right.
diversity and multiplicity.
Yeah, that's true.
And you know, considering the duplicitousness of life, you got to consider that there are times and places where there have been a higher proportion of predatory populations that have chosen more altruistic behavior. So if that's like a more general principle of the dynamics of our being, then it's almost like, I don't know, this is one of the funny things. In studying philosophy, the most improbable thing happened where I became continuously more sympathetic towards, and this is really unfortunate, but you gotta bear with me, towards Christian theology.
Okay, let's go.
Specifically in certain theorists, like not the popular Christianity, which has always been pretty politically corrupt, but the notions of like, I'm thinking specifically here of Baruch Spinoza,
Mm-hmm.
who thought that we lived in the best of all possible worlds, and the more general principle within the Christian church of like the great chain of being, which was totally co-opted for racist attitudes and dehumanization,
Mm-hmm.
which is unfortunate. Because I think that there's a validity to the idea of the human nature as being something which embodies a transcendent impulse of nature itself as a material construct, as a spirited and conscious construct
Mm-hmm.
that goes beyond our own, like the manipulative pre-cognitive structuring of like our biological sensorial phenomena. Like, you know what I mean? Like you know, there's one of the big discourses in philosophy throughout history has been this struggle to relate truth to appearance.
Mm-hmm.
And appearance is always taken to mean a sort of Hindu Maya, you know, the illusory reality which sits like a veil over our relationship to underlying structure.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I lost my grammatical chain, but
I
yeah.
know that feeling.
There's,
I was losing the thread too. I was like, oh no.
I know, yeah. Opening into
Yep.
infinite inarticulacy.
Yep, pretty much.
Yeah.
I was like, ooh, it's kind of like a skyline with a Milky Way.
Oh, I like this.
It's changing too. I don't know where we're going. The fire pit. Yes. Gosh, but yeah, I mean, just thinking about empire and dynamism and ecology. I think ecology has a lot to teach us about axiomatic truths in a way that just has not been fully expanded upon or tapped. Like the way that you employed ecological frameworks for a metaphor that was relating to a social reality, that was heavy hitting, right? Like ecological frameworks have so much potential power to unlock for our own benefit, and the lack of like mass participation and joyous undertaking of ecological knowledge is an intentional, paid for campaign. Like this is a right that we have as animals, is to, as animals who can modify our environment to the extent that we can. We have so much power over our environment. And the fact that we have that power just inherently as like innate animal beings, and we don't have this wonderfully empowering knowledge about environment modification or just environment in general, it's tragedy. It's tragic. It's genuinely like I would potentially want to treat it like isolation chamber style thing, like this silo concept of keeping people or things from the social fabric or the rest of the interdependent reality. And so to me, knowledge is living in the sense that it already exists and is real and can be discovered and found. And in that sense, it should not be like behind paywalls or any form of barrier. It belongs to the people. And libraries agree with me on that, but that's a narrow version of what I want.
Yeah. There's a communal element to knowledge development and
that's
storage.
true.
That's difficult just to read from a book.
Right. Yeah, and indigenous knowledge and indigenous practice is all about the living, breathing aspect of it. It's about oral tradition. It's about embodied knowledge and like storing knowledge with embodied ways.
Yeah. Community and ecology. I mean, it's. I think one of the things we're looking for is a way to structure an integrative function of like being itself. And I think that's what you find in indigenous knowledge systems.
Right.
It is a particular people with a particular language and a particular place in their present time,
Right.
who are learning to function and relate to their world
Mm-hmm.
in a way that sustains it,
Right.
and thereby sustains themselves, and thereby
their way of
sustains their
life.
grandchildren.
Yeah.
And you know, I agree with you. I agree and I disagree with the point that it's intentionally kept from us, because it is. It is hidden and other things are prioritized in ways that deny the value. And yet I wholeheartedly believe that it is out of hubristic arrogance and ignorance at the uppermost level of
I
people
agree.
who literally don't see the vision. They
Yeah,
don't
they
know
don't.
themselves.
Honestly, they are just scared that their most darkest aspects are the truest form of humanity.
Yeah.
And they're wrong. They're just bad people. And that sucks for them.
They have a culture that's failed them.
Yeah, they
and
have a
that's taught them about domination.
Yeah, and that's taught
violence.
them that is the only way to succeed.
And
Dominant violence is the only way to succeed, is trash culture.
aggregate wealth. You know?
Yeah, aggregate wealth.
No, it's,
Yeah.
It's fucking sad. Is what it is.
It's totally, it's so sad, it's tragic, but it's like we know what the story of the bad guy looks like, and it's always the same story.
Yeah.
It's always that fear of leaning into love. It's a fear of your own humanity. It's a fear that the worst things you've done are, you know, a true reflection of every other person. And that is some ego shit.
Yeah, that is some unintegrated psychic content that I've ever heard of.
Unintegrated psychic what?
Contents.
Oh, yeah.
No, that's that's funny. I love that you say that. We all know what the story is.
For
It's
the
like,
bad guy, yeah.
Every villain in
Everybody-
every story and every blockbuster every fucking year is
Every
the same
story,
thing.
it's the same story. Humans are just super big fans of ourselves. Like, we love telling stories about ourselves, but the stories are almost always the same. We just riff on all the differences, and that's what's fun.
Yeah.
Like, that's totally, I get it, it's what's fun, but the story is just always like, there was a problem, and then we solved it, probably together. Like,
Yeah. The what is the I'm trying to remember a meme. You know, the true gift is the friends we made along the way.
Oh, yeah.
Just,
It's important
so
to go
real.
alone, take this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my god, memes make it so simple, and that's something that you saw happen in like 2017, I would say, 2017, 2016, is all of these people realizing how streamlined memes made social reality,
Yeah.
and how much space that opened up for other things if social reality and communication about social reality could be streamlined to that extent.
Yeah.
Because they're data stores. A meme stores multiple layers of data. It's relational. Some of it's like if you know, you know. Some of it is origin and lore based. Some of it is just iconic in the public consciousness, you know. And so it's a collage.
Yeah.
It's an art piece. It's an NFT. It could be. You could totally monetize social capital. Maybe they will. Oh God, a new dystopia on the horizon. But you know, the people could also be empowered to use memes in their own way. And that's what's cool about it. And so this like streamlined way to share data quickly about social reality really opened up a lot of new avenues for humans to like communicate and construct social reality and do all sorts of cool stuff. And in the 2017s, you saw a bunch of people realize that and create something called a meme economy, where they were like, we are going to ascribe monetary value to this because I think it's kind of too important to not protect in some way.
Literal monetary value?
No, I don't think so, but I think thinking about it within the context of an economy protected the inherent usefulness of the purpose of memes.
Yeah.
Because humans need a way to trade. We need some kind of economy. We need like some form of exchange.
And information currency is what
Yeah,
the
and
one's about.
currency, yeah, and I think that was really clever. That was really smart, and it was really smart. Like the guy who originally came up with the blockchain like technology. Holy shit! I tried to read his paper once because I was like, I'm smart. I could figure it out. I really did not get it. I was like, oh no, I'm not that smart. I was like, oh no, this is my upper limit.
Too age, you know.
Yeah, well, and I've had people explain blockchain to me multiple times, and I get it in the sense of like I understand its real world impact and implication, but I don't like fully understand the mechanism. I just know that it's like inherently superior to other forms of economic models because of the authenticity, like robustness of authenticity protection, and embedded in the entire type of economy, that like everything about it.
Because that's like the buzzword, but the decentralization.
Yeah, the decentralization.
But it's like a diffuse.
Yeah, well, back when we were doing tea sessions, people were really like about the crypto pyramid schemes. Do you remember? I don't know, like
really?
Yeah, people were trying to pitch cryptid pyramid schemes to me back then, and I was like, oh no, this is about to blow up. And then like I was just looking at it, I was like, oh no, because when the like super out there woo-woo hippie people get a hold of something like that techie, I'm like, oh, that's how you know, because they trial it in the weird people spaces before they put it into the main. So I was like, oh fuck. And then of course 2 years later, cryptocurrency. And on the one hand, it was really cool. People were getting like educated about it for the first time, and I was like, well, that's cool. It's the same way that like I'm stoked that E.L. James wrote 50 Shades of Grey purely because we got BDSM out of the darkness. Okay, fine. But also, fucking hate you for doing a fanfic of Twilight and making it popular, you know, like changing the names and making abuse popularized or like even idealized, because that shit is not BDSM. It's definitely more abuse, and I just have to plug that. But in the same way, the cryptocurrency literacy like really kicked off, but embedded in that literacy at a big basic level was pyramid scheme mentality. And I was like, do not train the general population on cryptocurrency by using pyramid schemes, you fuckers. I was so mad. I was like, why? That's the wrong way to train about cryptocurrency. We need to start with the environmental impact and go from there, you know? Like, and we're not doing that. We're just not doing that. So, oh my god, I feel like I could just start on any conversation, any topic, and you would just know what I mean.
But you have so much more insight than I do, so it's really nice to get taken along for the ride, because it's something that maybe I've like, I operate a lot on ick. You know, I
Yeah.
get close to something, I'm like, there's something messy
There's
about
something
that.
not
I'm just
good,
gonna
yeah.
pull back from there. But like
That's
you
a good-
can engage in a really critical way, which I appreciate so deeply. So to hear you parse out and you know push, bring in, and move around, it's like yes, like oh my gosh.
I mean it does. It gives me the ick, but because pyramid schemes give me the ick.
Yeah, and you can name it.
Yes,
you know, that's key.
Totally. Yeah.
No, that's so funny. You know,
Thank you.
once the hippie woo-woo people get it, you know,
Yeah.
it's off to the races.
Oh, well, it literally is because you just like, if you polarize an environment enough that they become isolated groups, you can do anything inside of this group and this group won't fucking hear about it. And the same in the other way. So all you have to do is drag people out to extremes, get them into their weird little corners, and then do things to them, and then see how they react. And that's a very easy way to do social experiments without having any culpability. Yeah.
That's like
Facebook 2015 experiments.
No, that's surreal.
Oh my god, it's so real.
That's because at that point it's manipulation. It's not social
Yeah,
experimentation.
no,
It's
active, intentional
distortion.
Distortion of information. Yeah.
So willful pollution.
Oh, willful pollution. What a great. Yeah, that's 100%. That was disgusting. Oh, it reminds me of poisoning water.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, and one of the basic, and a lot of my metaphors for myself go back to like battlefield metaphors. But they do.
Well, sentience in direct and sustained conflict is warfare.
It is, and I do see my life as a positionality of like being in a constant psychological warfare because it's being waged at me already.
Yeah.
So like I'm not really opting in.
You're responding to the landscape.
But I'm responding to the landscape, and to save my own sanity, I have decided to volunteer on behalf of my own values.
As tribute.
Yeah, I volunteer. Oh my god, I did say we were gonna count this already.
Yes, ma'am.
I did. Oh my god. I actually use Lemony Snicket for all of my volunteer coding. He's so good. He's so good.
I've never read the book.
But the Netflix show?
I didn't watch the show.
Oh my god,
I'm on
watch
the
the
movies.
Netflix show. Okay,
Yeah.
the movies were good. The movies changed a generation, but if everybody had seen the Netflix show at the time they saw the Jim Carrey movie, we would be further along.
Yeah.
We just would.
Good to know.
So
I'll
Lemony
revisit it.
Snicket really laid it down for me. I was 12, totally took it in. I was like, yeah, you're the best.
Yeah, with a name like Lemony.
I know, right? Oh, and he's just a sneaky guy. He like left all these Easter eggs throughout the books, and you had to look it up. And I learned about the theory of relativity like way too young. Like he was so cool. He really just
Put it together to the puzzle master.
it's all making sense.
It's all coming together.
It's all coming together. We got our red strings out. Oh my god, but yeah, so I'm seeing myself as like a volunteer on the front of psychological warfare on behalf of my values, and so I'm doing all these battlefield metaphors just to stay sane. And poisoning the water always makes me think of where you're leaving your dead and how you treat your dead. And you can really see the way Empire discards the dead and how they treat the dead, or the almost dead, or anybody who might potentially be considering dying. And we saw that in COVID in really horrific ways.
Stark ways.
Rapid, stark ways that intentionally stark, rapid, horrific ways. Yeah. And I mean, I can't even unpack all the different impacts that are going to come from the way that media storm was done. All I could do was weather it.
Yeah.
And I think that was what most people could do at the time.
It was too much happening in too many places at once.
And too many like deep internal reflection levels. Like everybody took that time to reflect and to try to work on their lives.
Yeah.
They did. If you weren't in active crisis, you were trying to take the space and the grace to just do more for yourself, or work on things that you were struggling with, or suffer. Like, and those are like the three things. You were either suffering, or you were trying really hard to be grateful for how not suffering you were.
Or you were arguing for the system.
Or you were arguing for the system, which was just wild.
Which
Oh my
is
god.
really unfortunate,
I
yeah.
got I was so pissed. Like I said, I base most of my logic on wonderful children's books, and when COVID was happening, I was just like, this is an epidemic, and I'd learned about epidemics through the Circle of Magic series by Tamara Pierce, and So good. But you learn about epidemics, and she really just teaches you about what an epidemic is. And in the theory realm, as she's educating you, she also teaches you slightly about pandemics. So I got this knowledge, like streamlined how these things function, how viruses work, you know, how the how cure finding works at a very functional level from this one book.
Wow.
Yeah, it was really good. She was so before her time when she was thinking about like what to teach the young.
Yeah.
I was like, wow.
What was like the 90s book series?
Yeah, it would have been like 90s, 80s, somewhere around there. Yeah. It was really cool. And yeah, so she talks a little bit about pandemics, but I just learned about it way back then when I was just being a sponge. So in my world, when the pandemic hit, I was like, yes, the inevitable thing that everybody's been warning me about. Right? Like, I was not surprised. And I was one of the few who were lucky enough to be like, yes, you know, a lot of medical workers have been worried about this for years. A lot of people in the pharmaceutical industry have been warning about this ever since we started mass producing antibiotics. They were like, ooh, there are some implications here. Right? And you have scientists blowing whistles all the fucking time, being like, ooh, there are some implications here.
Yeah, and who fucking listens? Yeah.
Right. And it's like...
The children's book authors.
Right. Apparently, those are the people. That's my retirement plan, man.
Dude,
yeah, even if I go to prison, it's just like, well, I'll just write children's books.
That's the secret commonwealth
yes.
in practice.
Yeah. Oh my god.
Yeah, that's one of the things that media is so good for, is being able to like sideways in information that we never really come across in a pragmatic sense otherwise, or might be too traumatic in its reality to be able to process without being packaged in a way that's more, you know,
easy
fiction
to take it apart,
accessible.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, and that series was so good for pandemic. Anybody who's trying to like educate or orient your thinking about pandemics or the spread of disease should honestly really read the Circle of Magic series. But it's just got a name job, Tamara Pierce there. But
Pierce, I'm gonna be looking her up.
She's really cool. She has two different entire worlds, but they, I'm pretty sure, exist on the same globe. But they're so radically different that they have different magic systems. They have different ways of being. They have all these completely separate realities, and it's very East and West. But what she did was she took Eastern traditions and Western traditions and like intermarried them, but then separated them again. So like you're seeing them pop up, but they're like in this closed environment of like codified Westernisms. It's very like it's feudal Western versus feudal. Yeah, not feudal actually. It's feudal Western. Yeah, I don't know. It's really cool. She did some cool thinking back in the day, and it really shaped a lot of my thinking now.
The creative imagination. It's like the idea of ideas living on their own.
Yes. Oh, they do too, and that's a Brandon Sanderson thing that he brought to life in such a cool way. You don't know him?
I don't think so.
Oh my god! Wow. Okay, so he finished the Wheel of Time series for Robert Jordan, which was so cool. And he did a great job. The Wheel of Time series, that was a big one.
I've heard of it, but
you've heard of it, but you've never read it. Oh my god, wow. Talk about people synergizing Western and Eastern philosophy in unique and creative ways. Like that, I mean, that's why I love fantasy, right?
Yeah.
Like fantasy and sci-fi generally are just synthesizing social and cultural things in unique and creative ways.
We love.
But yes, so much love. But Robert Jordan, wow, he did some fundamental theory work. Like, if Robert Jordan had gotten as popular as Lord of the Rings, I feel like most of our problems would be solved.
Ooh.
Like, but that's just me, you know, I'm a huge stan. So.
Right, yeah, but hey, advocate your ass off.
He's just so good. And the biggest complaint for Robert Jordan is that he's sexist, quote. I know, and it's because a lot of his characters, his female characters, they do a lot of arm crossing below their bottoms, and he talks about it. So it's very like, and then they had tits, and I'm just like, well, how else are you differentiating and describing the physical motion? Anyway,
okay.
I really just think that the wrong things got focused on with Robert Jordan, because like, whenever you read an author, you have to think of the time and place that they were like grown, right? Like what nurtured their environment and thinking about the world. And so people with rigid male-female like stereotypes in the 80s, I'm not worried about them. right? Like, I'm more worried about my contemporaries. They still have really rigid ideas of male and female. Then I'm more worried. But like the '80s guy, not worried about him.
Yeah.
I'm not coming to his book to get his gender representation. Necessarily, you know. And so it's just like the level of how like the way that identity distortion can be used and applied to like keep you from like digging into stuff, right? And so like what I take from Jordan is more about the struggle that all of humanity is undergoing between like good and evil and like right and wrong and these larger scale concepts of what it means to be good and how can we find some objective ethical truth. Is there a way to find an objective ethical truth? Yeah. You know, all of these big picture questions. And he's like, okay, well, let's explore that in like a high fantasy, Lord of the Rings style way. We'll have different types of people from different places. And, you know, because I'm a huge warfare nerd, my favorite thing about him is the way that he combines different warrior practices. Oh. So he combines like... I don't even know if I can access the right culture at the moment, but he combines Bushido with Western, like, chivalry for the Shinarians in the north. I'm pretty sure, like, oh god, I hate trying to articulate things I've only ever felt or experienced through the act of consuming the media, but
right.
It's really cool. And there is systems of honor and relationship and things that he codifies in a new and creative, socially constructive way that I looked at and I was like, it's cool that you can do that. I'm gonna do that for myself with everybody else's stuff. And so I just started stealing social behaviors and I was like, that's cool, I like it. But in this way that I was like, oh, you could do it at like a larger level, right? He kind of opened up this idea to me that we could combine things that we love about one another's cultures in new and interesting ways. And that's why I like fusion restaurants, and that's why, you know, like, it's...
psychoanalysis of codes.
Yes, oh my god, we so are. When I first learned the term metropolitan, I was like, oh, that's me, that's mine.
Yeah.
That's my identity right there. Because it combined this idea of urbanization, of like this growing bubbling of personhood that is coming out of a continuously more flexible group of identities and people. And I was like, yeah, I want to be in that flux. I want to be in that flow of others and like that ebb and flow and that give and take of identity and personhood and role. Yeah. It's just cool.
Yeah. It is really cool.
Yeah.
The flexibility, the space of spirit that it keeps you in to be able to relate and be dynamic in that sense. Yeah. I've always associated metropolitan with like egalitarian and like diplomatic.
Okay.
Which is...
I like that too. I think that's part of it.
Yeah, like as an intermediary for the communication of the larger whole kind of a thing.
Oh, cool.
Okay.
Yeah, I like that for me. I'll take it. I'm still on it. Yeah. And also there were a lot of identities who were like repping metropolitanism at the time that were brave to me in their own rights. Like there were queer people and a lot of different kinksters actually from a variety of groups that I thought was really interesting that were all like crossing at the metropolitan identity. And I was like, oh, I like this intersection. And for me a lot of stuff goes back to intersections. It goes back to like burying your wishes at the crossroads and going forward, you know, and like just the amount of magic that inherently exists at a decision juncture.
Yeah.
It's so cool.
The currents of intersection.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I just want my house to be like at the crossroads. Like I just want to always be on the crossroads and making decisions again and again.
I love that for you.
Thank you.
That's so cool. I don't know if I'd be able to identify a metropolitan identity in a public or aesthetic sense. How did you come to identify what a metropolitan looks like?
Honestly, it hasn't been a living identity for me in a while. This was when I was first like learning about identity construction, but at the time the like look of a metropolitan was just whatever flowed in the day-to-day like life stream. So it just had to be a unique expression of themselves, but it had to like hit the room in a neutral way. Basically.
Yeah.
So that was my interpretation of it, and that's what I tried to embody at the time. I think I've tried really hard to internalize it to the point where it just flows from me and I don't think about it with the label.
Right.
Because the label can be, moved around or used, or like it's almost too relevant to be holding the label out. And that's how I feel about gender and sexuality more often than not. I'm like, it should be inside. Like that's internal.
Hard
that
agree.
is for my inside self. So I don't really want to. I don't want to give it a name or a label or articulate it, because doing so gives it parameters, and I hate parameters for those things. It's meant to be flux and flow. Yes. And that is where I see most of my like radicalism trending, is because I found the liberation through sex and gender identity in that flow state of like, oh, it can just be a flexible thing that is just always evolving in the present nowness of things. And when that blew my mind, I was like, oh, well, shit, most things probably are like that.
No, it's like there's so much vitality in it. We feel the need to codify it in order to make it dependable. But it's like the dependability kills the vitality, which is its essence. Like, you can't do that. It doesn't work like that.
It doesn't. And being assigned female at birth, like my assigned gender identity was the underdog. It was the one that like we were not the beneficiaries of gender dynamics in a general and mostly legal and embodied sense. You're like, I know, totally. You're like, I have watched this horrifically and been able to do very little, and it troubles me.
I have 4 sisters.
Yes. Oh, God. Yeah, and that's exactly, where a lot of the drive came from for that conceptualization, or like that movement towards fluidity. For me, it started with this like literal feminism and just gender liberation, and then the more that I got into the fluidity of gender identity as a concept, I was like, oh, we all need liberation from these polarized extremes of identity construct, because ultimately it's just not serving us anymore. Like having rigid ideas of male and female as a gender social construct is not serving us or our health at all. It's actively not helping anybody who's stuck in those extremes, and most of the healthy people are hanging out in the mid zone and just calling themselves one or the other because it's easy and because it doesn't have its social detriment under empire to do so. But if you remove that enforcement, those mid people would just be kind of like, yeah, I'm flowing. Yeah. Like most people, and that's how I feel about sexuality too. I went into like just assuming bisexuality because I'm attracted to everybody, which is a very uncomfortable place. I'm like, oh, you're so pretty. It's so relatable. But people just shine with their own light, and so trying to put that into like, oh, I'm going to only decide that men are the attractive ones, or females are the attractive ones. Like right. The minute I try to say it, I'm saying it like in an ugly way, because it's just not what the way that I see. Yeah, it's just. Yeah, so I was like, oh, I'm bisexual, and the more I thought about that, I was just like, well, that's still extremes. I think I'm just into people. Right? Like, I enjoy getting off for sure. Like, I also love intimacy.
Right. Love loving.
I love loving, yeah.
Is there a sexuality for loving loving? Mm-hmm. I love the prefix pan for panromantic, pansexual. Yeah. Just because it claims itself to be all-inclusive. So it like provides a label for the fluidity and the ambiguity, but also at a subtler linguistic level, because Pan is the pagan god that brings the revolution and that sings the song.
I love that. Yeah, oh my god. I have a friend who was one of the first, like, pan claimers in my sphere, but the first one to be like, yes, pan.
Yeah.
And they are just such a uniquely wonderful human being. Like, the clarity between what they believe and then what they go and do is so quick and just so immediate, and it always has been in my experience of them. So when they claimed pan, I was like, ooh, this is going to be so powerful. And I'm kind of a coward. Like, I'm a little bit of a
not an early adopter.
I'm
need
not
to see
an
the trial
early
runs
adopter.
first.
I like to see the trial runs first.
Oh,
And so I watched the pan thing, and I was thinking about my sexuality and fluidity and all this stuff, and I'm like, okay, I love pan as an identity for us to use in this trading of knowledge of one another and this expression, but I also, in my perfect utopian, Cozy's enforcing her idea of the world on you sort of world, sexuality and gender become so fluid and so ubiquitously fluid that we almost never mention those types of labels unless they are immediately and very much for a reason relevant. In sort of the same way that gender, like, fell out of English as, like, verb nouns having gender coding.
Right.
It's just like, it doesn't need to be there, and so, like, can we stop putting it in places it doesn't need to be? And to me, that really relates to the way that sex and sexualization and making things sexy is used to, like, sell and exploit us. And to me, they're the same argument. It's like when you make it relevant when it's not actually relevant. That is this manipulation and exploitation of the human consciousness and our social awareness and the way that we socially move through the world, and it's going to impact us. So, like, at the end of the day, I would like this all to take a backseat to environmentalism.
Whether we stay or go, the environment's here regardless. So.
I really just think investing in our environment will just result in happy humans who don't really need to care that much, and, like, the way that their language will change if they're happy and invested in things they care about, like, actually care about. They're gonna do it. They'll naturally go off. Like, humans are not inherently evil, and that, more than anything, is the idea we're combating, is this idea of, like, original sin and, like, inherent evilness and badness. It's like, no, we're good. We're cute, actually. We're really fucking cute as, like...
I love this for us, you know.
Yes.
This is a learning experience, you know.
Yeah,
what's a couple centuries in a universal history?
Thank you. Yeah, that is the perspective I always am trying to keep. I'm like, we're parenting humanity through teenagerdom.
Yeah.
In the end of the day, we are collectively parenting ourselves through a teenager.
Yeah, special teenagerhood.
Teenagerhood. And honestly, it really comes down to whether or not you're good at being the parent to your own toddler. Because we are all still toddlers. We all still get hangry and have shorter reaction times under certain circumstances, or, you know, have toddler behaviors, because ultimately that behavior is coded early. Like, that's just who we are. So we're gonna react like toddlers, and if you're good at being a parent to your own toddler, then you're gonna be a better parent to the humanity teenager of the world. It's just the scalability of it all. It's the ratio. And it does scale. It goes from micro to macro in perfectly logical steps we could totally map out, but it would take longer than my own life.
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna, but we could.
Sometimes it's more convenient to work within the space rather than model the space and then use it to reinforce the action.
Oh my god,
you know?
yes. And being alive is the important part. It's like, I want to just reinforce again that, like, the human experience and perception, now that we've come to the point where we've created AI and we really are on a cusp of technological advancement, the likes of which we've never seen. Now, all that's true. But being here, and being able to recognize, like, we could change. And we are the only thing that can change in this, like, progression. And we are the only ones with the power or the knowledge or the ability to change ourselves. And we're also the only wild card. Everything else is environment, or it's a tool we made ourselves. So, like, at the end of the day, we're the only unknowable. Like, we're the only Schrodinger's cat. We're the only part in this entire story that doesn't know its own end. You know, there's like... And that's power. That's magic. That is, like, a unifier.
The place between the ambiguity of outcome and the possibility of self-determination is the ecosystem of, like, free will.
Yeah.
I think that, yeah, I think that, you know,
saying...
The only thing that I think it's really sane to choose, I think the only thing that's productive for ourselves and for the community to choose, the same thing what you said about, you know, how environmental and ecological awareness has endless amounts to teach everyone and is good for all. It's like that is the Commonwealth of Good.
Yeah.
I keep wanting to say the Commonwealth of Good. The secret
Commonwealth.
The secret Commonwealth of Good, you know?
The secret Commonwealth of goodness.
It creates the shared space. Oh, this is lovely. This is lovely to work with. I'm seeing the time.
Yeah.
It's 7:10. I do have to meet my father.
Oh no,
at a certain point.
Not meeting the father. Okay.
Not meeting the father. He's
I like your
returned
dad.
from
He's
vacation.
great.
He's sweet. Did you get to meet him?
No, but I have heard him through you.
Yeah.
He's got a gorgeous song. Yeah.
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 That's. I'm gonna tell him you said that. He's gonna be very flattered.
Oh, good. Yeah, I do.
I feel like it's audacious to ask to save this for next time to be able to look on it again.
Let's do it.
I would love to return
Please.
to this table.
Yeah, come back, please. Let's do it again.
Like I never left.
It really is, yeah. And I'm glad.
I missed you, Cozy. It's been a long time since I've seen you.
It's been so long, but not that long.
Not in the scheme of things.
Oh,
you know.
God, yeah.
Dissolving black holes and proton decay, but you know.
Quite indeed, yes.
But too long.
Oh, good. Yes. It really has.
It's so lovely to see the things that you're doing and how you're birthing your spirit into the world and bringing
Thanks.
the ideas into life. Is this birthing your spirit too visceral of a metaphor?
A little bit, just because you saw me in the amniotic stage, so it's like it's a little raw, just in the realness of it.
Oh, you know.
But, yeah.
Yeah, the flower of life and the cells of creation.
Oh God! Wow.
No, it's really cool. I love to see it. I feel more not seen because that's like a self-identificatory thing, but like I feel more present in the world.
Yeah.
Both seeing the produce of your labor, and also hearing the spirit that you hold behind its creation.
Thank you.
Like it feels like, oh wow, I am living in this world that I've thought I'm living in, but was never able to bring about myself.
Oh my
know?
God, yeah. Well, and I'm intelligently reinforcing truths that I know we all know. That's all I'm doing. I'm just saying, like, hey, I'm gonna just say it out loud, and then you're gonna walk away and you're gonna feel better from hearing it because someone said it out loud. And hopefully you'll take with that when somebody says something out loud, everybody feels better, and then you will also say stuff out loud, because saying stuff out loud is how we change it. It just is.
Brings it to the light.
It just does. It brings it into the light, and the light is a beautiful place for everything to be.
Yes, shared awareness.
Oh my God, yeah. And that, I mean, for me, it goes back to destigmatization.
Yeah.
Like, shred the stigma completely. It does not need to exist. And we exist within so much assumed guilt, as I mentioned, or assumed shame, that shredding stigma is hard because you don't realize that you even have it, or that it's not good for you. You think it's serving a purpose, or is good for you, or is doing something, for a higher cause. And it's just imprisonment at the end of the day. Thinking something's wrong with you, or that you're bad, or that you have something to be ashamed of for being a normal human being is like literally the only thing standing between us and the utopia that I want to see in the world. So
itsy bitsy
stop
thing,
it. Just
you
that
know.
little thing.
Just love yourself,
Just
damn
love
it.
yourself more, okay? I promise you deserve it.
It was prescribed by Dr. Cozy.
Yes, Dr. Cozy! Oh, I want to be Dr. Cozy so bad.
Oh.